is to give those of you who are not familiar with the GenRe-Mekong project a rundown of our activities and our objectives. And so I will only spend 10 minutes or so doing this. So the GenRe-Mekong project was conceived as a partnership project. In other words, putting together scientific capability from the Oxford University, from the Mahidol-Oxford Research Unit, from the Sanger Center in the UK, and partner this technological capability with the public health people working in the different countries of the Mekong subregion. So the idea was basically that we would organize collections of samples from as many malaria cases as possible throughout the region, and the best way to do this would be to partner with the control programs in the various countries and operate through the public health facilities in the endemic region. Then the samples would then be processed first at centralized labs in the previous years, but now we're opening labs also in the endemic countries themselves, and basically obtain a range of genetic genotypes of results that tell us basically about the parasites, about whether they're resistant to drugs, about whether they're related to each other, about whether they're spreading, and so on. And this would then be communicated to the public health authorities, and then hopefully support the decision-making process. And as you can see on this map, which is now somewhat outdated, we have a lot of sampling sites from all the countries in the region, and the numbers of samples has been continuously rising, and we have collected around about 15,000 samples so far. That's of Plasmodium falciparum, and there's over 5,000 vivax samples as well that we've collected. And by the way, as you can see from this table, you know, in the earlier periods, we collected a lot of samples through large-scale research projects, but nowadays a lot of the samples come from the projects with the control programs, which are shown in yellow here. Okay, move forward. The way in which we've simplified the collection process was to make the collection of samples very straightforward, very easy to integrate with the control programs, and we provide all the materials, and we don't require a lot of data. We just want to know where and when the sample was collected. We try to support each country by providing not only the materials, but also the protocols, submitting the ethical approvals, supporting local coordinators that move the samples between the sites and the labs, by training the staff that participates. You can see some nice pictures there from our trainings in Vietnam and also in Cambodia. And ultimately, we also want to support the development of scientific talent in these countries that will work with us to better communicate the results to the control programs. I mentioned earlier on that we've created processing labs in 2 countries. Well, in Vietnam, the laboratory is operational now, and I got to thank Dr. Nguyen, who's actually on the line right now, and she manages the laboratory in Ho Chi Minh City, and we've been very successful at implementing this, and we completed all the testing periods, and we're now basically in the production stages. And Thailand is going to follow very shortly within this year, we believe, and the laboratory here will be managed by Professor Malika Imwong. What data do we return from these samples? Well, what we return is what we call genetic report cards. These are data sets that consist of summary of the mutations that we know to be associated with drug resistance, which is really the major problem with genetic epidemiology in the Greater Mekong Subregion. So we have markers for resistance to artemisinin, to piperacin, but also to historical drugs that have been used here in the past. The other thing that we do is we create these genetic barcodes, which are some form of a summary of the genome of the parasites, and these have actually been proved very useful in order to look at, for instance, analyzing outbreaks, analyzing the epidemiology of the parasites. And there will be more later on in some of our sessions later. Of course, if we just return genetic data in the raw form to the control program, it's not going to be very useful, because it actually does require a lot of literature search and a lot of additional knowledge to determine whether a parasite is sensitive or resistant to a particular drug. So we make those predictions in the data that we return to a control program. So we end up with a sort of relatively simple classification, which then enables us to show on a map how prevalent the resistance to a particular drug is. And as you can see from this map, which is from our publication that was released last year on eLife, once we put this data together, and especially if we put different countries together, the pictures that we get are very clear, and they are very informative about the spread of resistance. And the interesting thing is that the more samples we have, the more in-depth we can go into analyzing the data. So in this case here, we have a comparison between two different seasons in Vietnam, and you can see that here we're going down to district level within 3 different provinces of Vietnam, and we show from one season to the next the shift of drug-resistant samples eastwards and the change in frequency in the different districts. We also, especially in the last year, 18 months, we've also been looking at other epidemiological analysis. So, for example, you can see here a map of what we call connectedness, which shows how much we estimate that parasites travel between one district and the other of the provinces of southern Laos. And you can see here very clearly that there are 2 regions with relatively little exchange between them. And actually, when we look at the characteristics of the parasites, what we do find is that we could actually justify this by monitoring 2 main strains that are actually circulating in these different regions. So you can see that we are able to look at strains, identify them, and assign different parasites to a particular strain, and eventually also look at where these strains come from. So here, what we've shown, for example, and my colleagues here at MOR will go through this later on. We have shown, for example, that in southern Laos there has been a sort of battle between different artemisinin-resistant strains, and the one that was prevalent until 2019, C580Y, has now been overtaken by another one which carries the R539 mutation. So that's the science, and we're going to present some of these results. But with the little time that's left here, I would like to also talk about how we would like not only to do the interesting science, but also enable our collaborators from doing it with us. So in this second phase of GenRe-Mekong, we have extended the surveillance network to include more partners, but also we have planned many activities, of which this forum is one, but that will include training activities, which will start later on this year, and software tools that can be used by the scientific partners in the countries. And essentially, we want to build capacity. We want to transfer the knowledge, the methods, and the capabilities to scientific experts in Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, Thailand, and Myanmar, hopefully, and work with them in order to analyze the data, to share it across the borders, but especially to inform appropriately the control programs and other public health authorities. And that is all that I would like to do in my introduction so far. I would like to thank very much all the collaborators here, and I purposely haven't put any names in here. I'll just go by organization. Literally, we're talking of hundreds of people that have contributed to this project in the last 5 years or so. But especially, I would like to thank all the public health partners, the national malaria control programs, and over here you can see, you can find your own symbols, and also the units that have supported us with scientific expertise, like Lomru in Laos, Okru in Vietnam, Mahidol here in Thailand, SMIU, and others. And finally, of course, a word of thanks to our funders, in particular the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the Wellcome Trust, and as from this year, the Global Fund, who's been funding the capacity building activities. And with this, thank you very much.